What the heck has been happening over the past couple of days / week when it comes to American politics, and how does it impact you at home? That's right, guys. Welcome to the Oops All Politics episode, because there's so much happening around the world that we probably need to talk about it all in one freaking episode. This is your host, Omni, speaking. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. Donald Trump has proposed something that sounds straight out of a dystopian novel, which is taking over Gaza and turning it into a luxury resort. But where does this leave the millions of Palestinians living in there, and what does that actually mean for the Middle East? The trade wars are back. Over the past couple of weeks, Trump has reignited economic tension, slapping tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, some of which have been retracted. But in a non-shocking twist, the United States Post Office has now suspended packages from China and Hong Kong. Did anybody say Timu? Talk about USAID getting shut down, where thousands of employees have been laid off. Critical foreign aid programs are frozen. We'll talk about Trump's expansions. I think he's been trying to take over the Panama and also make Canada the 51st state. We'll talk about the Department of Education and the rumors swirling around, how it might be gone for good. That happens. What does it mean for schools and students and the future of learning in America? As you guys can see, we have a lot to talk about, and the majority of what we have to talk about is just things that have been happening over like the past couple of days, okay? Not even a full week, all right? Trump is going wild. Every single day, I'm waking up to another huge, significant policy change or executive order, okay? And I feel like if I don't like stand on my toes here, if I don't update you guys daily, then we'll get lost in the sauce and you just won't know what's happening. But first, before we get into the news, okay, I just want to kind of like talk to you guys really fast. 101, mano y mano. I want to let you guys know just generally how I'm feeling. Most of you guys at home who know me know that I don't really like discussing politics because for me at least, there's a lot of crash outs on like both sides of the party, okay? Just people who are just out here crashing out, yelling, screaming, super bad energy in this arena. For the most part in this space, especially when it comes to the online community, just not a lot of people that I would like to touch grass with. The thing is though, is that you can't ignore it, right? I mean, you can if you want. You can just, shut out the world and ignore everything, and I wouldn't blame you because it might be kind of stressful, but I don't think that's a good idea. In fact, I think it's pretty important to kind of just know what's occurring, okay? And then just figure out how to not allow it to like emotionally get to you. I imagine for some of you guys at home might feel like a lot of this information might feel like a little bit zoomer, I suppose. That make you get a little bit of anxiety, or I don't know, you're worried about the increase in prices of eggs and how that's going to affect you, or these policies and how it might impact you. Okay, I think some of you guys are a little bit nervous. Some of you guys are okay, and that's cool, but some of you guys, admittedly, I probably understand, are a little bit worried about what's happening just because of the volatility. So number one, there's that. Number two, there's also the problem with information these days becoming harder and harder to verify. I think it's becoming increasingly clear from certain sources that biases are essentially sharpening, and news sources feel like they're kind of radicalizing, and I find myself questioning everything every day. Like, we live in a society right now where a lot of people, the majority of people in my opinion, are getting their information from like literally just Twitter headlines and Facebook headlines. That's it, just the title. That's where they get their information. There's no reading, there's no verifying, there's no cross-checking, and then it becomes the loudest echo changers. These are the people that you're talking to with nuance. I feel like I'm surrounded by people who are like, hey, did you hear the news about, and it's just literally a news article from any kind of unverifiable source, and that is the extent of what they have to say about it, but it's their truth, and it's getting kind of like exhausting to kind of like be in these spaces with these people who literally just read 1% of what's out there. So we're living in an age of disinformation, we're living in an age of misinformation, we're living in an age of miseducation, quite literally, and we're living in an age of censorship where certain views are being basically locked down or suppressed depending on the platform as well. So it's really difficult to get information these days. It's starting to become a very valuable source to find someone who is just talking in a way that's not trying to push something at you. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's kind of like just some of the thoughts I was thinking about before we get into this. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys the information as non-biased as possible, as factual as possible. I'll be as factual as possible. We'll keep it nice and chill, relaxing, so you can, keep your stress and anxiety levels low, and also keep out the doom and gloom. Let's just kind of look at things logically and objectively and factually as much as possible. If we make some mistakes, I'll correct them in the future episodes. But yeah, all right. I don't know if it's possible, but I prefer that this be a space that's like secluded from the chaos from the outside world, where I think we're like more level-headed here, less tension, more nuance, a safe space for like uncomfortable conversations, and trying to really see what's happening through all the smokes and the mirrors. All right, cool. Let's get started. So first, let's talk about this whole thing about Trump talking about occupying Gaza. That's right. That's Donald Trump right here with the Prime Minister of Israel. This is good old Ben Netanyahu, and they're sitting together talking. And I'm going to play a clip for you guys here from CNN. It's about a minute. You guys can hear that first, and I'll give you guys a couple more updates in terms of what Trump has been saying about this whole occupation of Gaza and turn it into a nice place like Egypt.
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. It's been one of the meanest, toughest places on earth. And right now, I've seen every picture from every angle, better than if I were there. And nobody can live there. You can't live there. So if we can build them through massive amounts of money supplied by other people, very rich nations, and they're willing to supply it. If we can build something for them in one of the countries, and it could be Jordan, and it could be Egypt, it could be other countries, and you could build 4 or 5 or 6 areas. It doesn't have to be one area, but you take certain areas and you build really good quality housing, like a beautiful town, like someplace where they can live and not die. Because Gaza is a guarantee that they're going to end up dying. The same thing's going to happen again. It's happened over and over again, and it's going to happen again as sure as you're standing there, Peter. So I hope that we could do something where they wouldn't want to go back. Who would want to go back? They've experienced nothing but death and destruction.
So, yeah, you heard that right. Donald Trump is suggesting that they gentrify Gaza. Okay, we go in there, we build a bunch of nice housing for all the people who've been displaced. They don't want to go back, right? Because that's their homes. They're not trying to go back. But but yes, affordable housing for people who probably don't have any jobs anymore. I don't know how that would work, or if this is something that they're going to bring other people in. It sounds like, to be honest, this sounds like what Trump would do like in the United States or any other place, where it's just kind of like just knock it down, construction, and then essentially build it back up.
Yeah,
how many people are you thinking about?
All of them. I mean, we're talking about probably 1.7 million people, 1.7 million, maybe 1.8 million. But I think all of them. I think they'll be resettled in areas where they can live a beautiful life and not be worried about dying every day.
Oh yeah, he's saying let's get them all out. Get all of them out. 1.7 million people out, cause it's a bad place to be, cause they just keep dying there. Let's just go. Ejectocito Caso out of Gaza. As you guys can imagine, there are a lot of people on both sides here are kind of alarmed about this type of declaration. It seems the general sentiment online is that regardless of like your position on Hamas or Israel or the Palestinians or whatever is happening on the war, most Americans feel like they're kind of want to focus on what's happening here within their own borders than kind of focusing on, another person's war. Not even just the war, but like I honestly can't like imagine like how this works. Like how do you like forcefully remove 1.7 million people out of a place, and then after you somehow move them out, I don't know how much that's going to cost, but once you do that, then how do you go about like hazing it down and then rebuilding it like that? I don't know. This sounds like something like out of like Civilization or a video game. Okay, I'm poking fun, but like I quite literally do not know how you accomplish such a task and then also get away with it. How the rest of the world is just like, all right, bro, it's all yours, Donald Trump. Do what you got to do. But yeah, that's a little bit of the public sentiment, like some of the people who are just kind of talking about it in some of the social spaces. Okay, in terms of like the allies, they've been responding to from it already. This article from AP News talks about how some people have already addressed Trump's statement, where it reads, Egypt, Jordan, and other U.S. allies in the Mideast have cautioned Trump that relocating Palestinians from Gaza would threaten Mideast stability, risk expanding the conflict, and undermine a decades-long push by the United States and allies for a two-state solution. Foreign Ministry issued a sharply worded reaction to Trump, noting their long call for an independent Palestinian state was a firm, steadfast, and unwavering position. Saudi Arabia has been in negotiation with the U.S. over a deal to diplomatically recognize Israel in exchange for a security pact and other terms. Quote, the duty of the international community today is to work to alleviate the severe human suffering endured by the Palestinian people who remain committed to their land and will not budge from it, the Saudi statement said. Still, Trump insists that the Palestinians, quote, have no alternative but to leave the big pile of rubble that is Gaza. He spoke out as his top aide stressed that a 3 to 5 year timeline for reconstruction of the war-torn territory as laid out in a temporary truce agreement is not viable. So here's things we get a little bit spicy. Okay, Trump says, quote, "You look over the decades, it's all death in Gaza. This has been happening for years. It's all death. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes where they can be happy and not be shot and not be killed and not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza." Trump then also said that he isn't ruling out deploying U.S. troops to support reconstruction of Gaza. He envisions long-term U.S. ownership of a redevelopment of the territory. The president's proposal was greeted with an alarm by Democrats and a measure of skepticism by his Republican allies. So yeah, like I said, this is a lot of people are concerned about this from both sides, being like, bro, are we really trying to send troops over to Gaza? Now, I'm not saying that he's trying to invade it military style, but if you're sending troops, then you have like military presence there. Trying to say more so that he wants to have it there for the efforts of rebuilding it, but trying to avoid military conflict in Gaza by occupying it with actual U.S. soldiers. Oh no, bro.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
So yeah, concerns. Like, number one, are we sending U.S. military troops to clean up like the bombs that are placed? Like, are we risking like American lives to go clean up Gaza? Is that what's occurring here, essentially? Number two, who's footing the bill? Okay, is this something that's coming out of the United States pocket? He has said something about other rich people taking care of it, but I'm not sure. But yeah, a lot of people feel that Trump here is essentially bending over backwards for Israel and is now being used as a puppet. It's the narrative, okay? There's also the narrative that he's kind of working bipartisanship, working with Israel, and that maybe Trump is over here and he's actually in control. It's hard to say, but I think the idea, again, of just occupying Gaza just seems like a fever dream that I'm not exactly sure that it will actually carry out. But at the same time, it's Trump. We have Trump in office. And to be honest, I wouldn't put anything past him when it comes to what he's capable of doing, because in my opinion, Trump is like a joker. He's a wild card. It could potentially happen. So yeah, that's the extent of that. Okay, again, a lot of people on both sides are saying, like, yo, bro, America first. Okay, like, chill. Don't go over there giving a bunch of money over to Israel. You know, don't leave Ben and you leave him alone. Let them do what they need to do. Maybe kind of like help regulate, but like keep your energies like inside here of America, like you said you would. Is what a lot of the sentiment is. You guys can let me know how you feel about it, but I'll update you guys if there's any more when it comes to the potential occupation of Gaza by America. Because again, I can't believe I'm saying that, but that's such a wild thing to hear. But yeah, here we are. Next up, guys, let's talk about the trade wars. That's right. There's been a lot of movement when it comes to the trade wars and the tariffs when it comes to the United States of America. I wanted to cover this, but then as I was covering it, there was changes afoot. Okay, I'll keep it, you know, just really quick. Okay, but if you guys don't know, Trump has been saying like, hey, here are tariffs that we're planning to put on both Colombia, to put on Mexico, to put on Canada, to put on China. We're going to put like 25% tariff on you bad boys, okay? Because, yeah, we're tired of essentially getting the bad end deal of a stick here when it comes to all of our past agreements. Canada and Mexico and China have not taken kindly to it. First, let's start with Canada. It basically started when the Trump administration announced a 25% tariff on imports from Canada. He said the goal was to protect American manufacturing and basically stop what he called unfair trade practices. And yeah, like I said, Canada didn't take this lightly. Quite literally, almost the same day, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, fired back, calling the tariffs a direct attack on North American trade. A lot of people basically warned Canada, though, that if they retaliated, that like key American industries like the automotive industry and the agriculture industry would basically feel a very tight squeeze. Okay, that means there'd be higher prices for cars, there would be job losses, and just it would be like a supply chain nightmare for these industries. However, I think within less than 48 hours, Trump then announced that he's pausing the tariffs, but only for 30 days.
We have fought and died alongside you during your darkest hours. During the Iranian hostage crisis, those 444 days we worked around the clock from our embassy to get your innocent compatriots home. During the summer of 2005, when Hurricane Katrina ravaged your great city of New Orleans, or mere weeks ago, And we sent water bombers to tackle the wildfires in California.
So this was in response initially, if you guys don't recall, but Canada was pissed. There were anthems, but people would do like the national anthem, and Canada was like, whoa, no, we're not doing the national anthem here. No United States national anthem here, okay? Canada is one of our biggest allies. They're right there. They're right above us, okay? And we starting beef with them. We started beef with one of our biggest freaking allies, and they were not taking it very kindly. They're like, dog, look at everything that we have been through. Look at us. And now you're coming at us like this. This is how you want to approach the situation. I don't take that kindly. I don't take that respectfully. And I feel like maybe since we are in charge of a lot of your electricity, we might potentially shut some stuff down. Okay, now that's how the trade wars work. If you want to tariff me, I'll tariff you. You want to affect our economy, we'll try to affect your economy. Okay, even though the United States might have a stronger economy, a lot of these people won't take things sitting down. But it looks like it was used to basically come to the table with a conversation. Let's continue this speech right here by Justin really quickly.
During the day the world stood still, September 11th, 2001, when we provided refuge to stranded passengers and planes, we were always there, standing with you, grieving with you, the American people. Together, we've built the most successful economic, military, and security partnership the world has ever seen. A relationship that has been the envy of the world. Yes, we've had our differences in the past, but we've always found a way to get past them. As I've said before, if President Trump wants to usher in a new golden age for the United States, the better path is to partner with Canada, not to punish us.
So yeah, he said, bro, chill. All right, don't come at me like that, man. We're supposed to be good. Chill out. So yeah, this was from Justin Trudeau's actual Twitter account. He then later made this post here and said, hey, I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl Cesar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive and organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. So some people are trying to figure out like, whoa, was this like a huge power move by Donald Trump? Or was this something that was already in place, that was already occurring, and they're just kind of announcing it, and Donald Trump did get his tariffs? Okay, what was the impact, the effect of basically, scaring the people into these tariffs? What occurred? What did U.S. get from the deal? Was to pause tariffs on Canada and Mexico? And people are saying, and on AP News, not much. It reads, many of those outside the White House looking at the tariffs drama say little was accomplished, arguing that the measures taken by the two U.S. neighbors were already in place or likely could have been achieved without Trump's ultimatums. Even the financial markets seemed to shrug off the showdown with a modest sell-off on Monday. Going into Canada and a little bit into Mexico as well, it said weeks ago, Canada offered the $1.3 billion Canadian dollars, $900 million for border security, with a package that included drones, helicopters, more border guards, and the creation of a joint task force. On Monday, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said after talks with Trump, we just talked about that they're going to go for it. Canada did not bend the knee. There is such a small flow of fentanyl into the United States from Canada that it will be tough to show the president that there's been a gigantic reduction because there's no gigantic start to begin with compared to the southern border, suggesting that the flow of fentanyl is not coming from Canada, it's coming from Mexico. If you guys don't know, there's a flow of drugs coming into America, fentanyl, and they're trying to basically create these borders to basically control how much comes in. And Canada's saying, it ain't us, bro. Check your south border. The Trump team saw it as a win that Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum agreed to station 10,000 members of her country's National Guard on its border with the United States. But those troops are essentially being shifted from other parts of the country rather than newly deployed. They would join the more than 10,000 troops already stationed along Mexico's northern border, whose presence has been unable to stifle persistent violence in a region closely held by organized crime to allow the smuggling of drugs, migrants, and guns. Also says Trump's pattern, which is find a way to declare a win. Inu Munak, a fellow for trade policy at the Council on Foreign Relations, said Trump's tariff threats, quote, were certainly not necessary, but his objectives in making the threats are, quote, purposely vague so that he can declare victory regardless of the outcome. Quote, a win is anything Trump wants it to be, she said. There isn't any grand strategy or rational explanation for what he's doing. It's chaos for the sake of chaos. So this is what I was talking about, okay? And I think a lot of people feel this as well. This is when it comes to Trump, he's dramatic, okay? He likes the theatrics, okay? He'll walk down the street, you know, and call it a win for Republicans, you know? That's just what he does. He did that in his first presidency. We know that he does this in his presidency. He likes to gas himself up and spin things in a way where it's very, very good for him, or very, very, very bad for his enemies, even if both things that are occurring are nothing burgers. That's just kind of like how politics works as well. So it's just that when it comes with Trump, it feels like it's a little bit more volatile because we're hearing it every day. I remember there was a point in time, I don't know if you guys remember this as well, but when Trump was in office for his last term, it felt like every day there was something new, right? There was no rest for the wicked. Just be like, bam, it'll be another tweet, it'll be another crazy tweet, it'll be another crazy tweet, it'll be another saying. It was like, what is going on? And people were like, man, I miss having a boring president, right? And that's how Biden eventually came into the office. They're like, I miss it when I didn't know what my president was saying every single day or wasn't tweeting kind of thing. And now we're back. And yeah, we're trying to occupy Gaza. We are starting fights with Canada and Mexico. And yes, that's kind of where we are. Finishing this line, it says Trump often stirs up drama and then tries to take credit for actions that might not resolve the underlying problems. After the recent wildfires in LA, Trump made a big show of having water released on Friday from reservoirs in California, even though the water does not flow to Los Angeles County. He also took credit for corporate investments in AI that predated his presidency. So just, you know, business as usual. So guys, that's Canada and that's Mexico. What I want to move over to now is China. All right, because we got some tariffs that are currently happening there, and we have some cutoffs when it comes to the USPS, the United States Post Office, that might be impacting shipments from China. If you guys don't know, we get a lot of imports from China. So what the hell do you mean by that, bro? This article by NPR does a good job summarizing some of the implications of the tariff that Trump has basically placed on China for 10%, saying every day many people in the U.S. eat fruit grown in Mexico, use phones made in China, and live in homes built from lumber from Canada. Now, trade with those three countries could be interrupted. President Trump has imposed a 10% tariff on China, leading the country to retaliate with tariffs of its own. And we've already talked about Mexico and Canada, so we know that got paused, so we don't need to talk about that. So let's focus on China. It reads here, the tariffs on China will sting consumers on a range of items, okay? The U.S. imports a lot from China, and Trump's 10% tariff could hit more than $450 billion worth of imports. The tariffs Trump imposed during his first term were more targeted. This time around, more Americans will feel the impact. Among the imports affected are a whole slew of consumer goods, including footwear, toys, video game consoles, and electronics. U.S. businesses import a large number of components from China, as well as the machinery and equipment they use in their own production processes. So the cost of production in the U.S. will go up too. The Tax Foundation estimates that the tariffs on China alone will add $172 to the tax burden per U.S. household. And there's no exception for Apple this time, unlike in Trump's first term. So iPhones, iPads, tablets, laptops, all of that from Apple would now be hit, which is kind of a big escalation compared to how consumer goods were shielded from most of the first trade war tariffs. Okay, so yes, prices are going up as we essentially put this tariff on China for 10%. Does this mean that the $800 iPhone will now cost $880 and or 10% more? Not necessarily. For one thing, importers, they pay a tariff based on the cost price of the item, not the full retail price. And Apple might try to ramp up its production in other countries like India. Okay, so they're like, hey man, if China, we got these tariffs with China, maybe we'll work with other countries that we haven't imposed this tariff with yet. Or it could decide to eat the cost of the tariffs, especially since competitor Samsung produces many of its phones in South Korea or Vietnam and won't feel the same blow. So it's suggesting that even though we might have a 10% tariff on these imports of China's goods, okay, Apple might just eat it themselves, eat the cost, as opposed to letting it, trans and go down to the consumer. Okay, so instead of you paying $880, it might stay $800, and the cost for Apple may stay at $800 in order to remain competitive with Samsung, if that makes sense. But it reads, but even if Americans don't see an increase in the actual sticker price of an item, there's still pain being inflicted on the U.S. economy. Quote, it means incomes and returns to shareholders of the U.S. economy are lower instead, because if businesses have to eat those higher costs, it means they have less to pay their workers. It means they have less to hire and expand employment, or less to invest. So no matter what channel the price impact takes, it's Americans who are hurt by the tariffs. China responded with its own 15% tariffs on American coal and liquefied natural gas, and 10% tariffs on crude oil, farm equipment, and certain other vehicles to take effect February 10th. That's in 5 days. So yeah, that's the tariffs that's currently happening with China. I don't think those have been paused yet. If they have, I will let you guys know. We haven't had that 30-day pause yet, where I guess Trump has worked with China there. So right now, that cost is getting cooked in and baked in, as of today. But Michi had said, hey, please talk about the United States Post Office suspension of inbound parcels coming from China and Hong Kong. The effects have also already stretched to other delivery companies, examples DHL, U.S. Holo fans getting hit with custom fees because their items are made in China. So yeah, because of this freaking impact of these tariffs, apparently the parcels coming from China and Hong Kong have either been delayed or suspended, and people aren't getting their products anymore. This person said, I got hit with a 25% customs fee on my FWMC set I ordered on Holo Shop to America. Is this the new standard? I can't pay for all of this, and all the other orders I already budgeted for and covered months ago. I didn't even know they were allowed to charge tariffs on less than $800 in Japan, essentially. So people were like, whoa. For anybody who's basically importing from China, right? If every single import and parcel was now including these tariffs for these goods, that is a lot of cost for some of these businesses to be eating up. However, as of this morning, it looks like that has been cleared up. Okay, so in case you guys heard about that, it looks like as of literally this morning, they said that the USPS has resumed accepting parcels from mainland China and Hong Kong following a brief suspension after Donald Trump changed the rules on import taxes. The USPS said it was working with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection to ensure, quote, the least disruption to package deliveries as the U.S. president announced trade measures, which include imposing tariffs on Chinese goods. As part of the changes, the U.S. has closed a loophole that allowed small packages worth $800 or less to be sent to America without paying taxes or fees. Okay, so this is for larger ticket items. Chinese retailers such as online giants Shein and Temu have used the tax exemption to ship low value packages to the U.S. and have benefited from similar rules in the UK and the European Union to reach millions of its customers. So since Temu and Shein are essentially retailers that sell for very, very, very cheap, more than likely the goods that they send out from their places are less than $800. Therefore, they can avoid that loophole. Reading further, okay, because this is pretty interesting, actually. The explosion of parcels being shipped under the loophole has prompted increased scrutiny in recent years. While all retailers use the exemption, those who sell fast fashion and cheap goods have seen their sales soar. And it's prompted concerns that domestic retailers are being undercut and governments are missing out on potential tax income. America's change to stop low-value products being shipped tax-free under the so-called de minimis exemption came into force on Tuesday. Postal Service initially halted parcels from China overnight, but then restarted them on Wednesday, stating the USPS and the Customs Border Protection are working closely together to implement an efficient collection mechanism for the new China tariffs to ensure the least disruption to package delivery. Letters are not affected by any changes announced by Trump, who set out plans to impose 10% tariff on all goods imported to the U.S. from China. Finishing up, it reads, in the U.S., okay, close to half of all parcels entering the country under de minimis exemptions were sent from China, according to what Thank you, Creative Cloud. A 2023 report by U.S. Congress. So half of the packages were less than $800. Officials have pointed out that the large flow of parcels entering the county through this exemption made it increasingly difficult to screen them for possible illegal goods. Trump has been expected to speak to his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in the coming days, but on Tuesday, the U.S. president said he was in no rush to hold talks. So more than likely, what's today, Wednesday? We'll probably hear something where, Trump talks to China, and it'll, I don't know. We'll see what they have to talk about, see if the tariffs at the 10% stick or not. But yeah, he's kind of doing what he did with Mexico and Canada, but now with China. Anyway, long story short, the USPS kind of halt has halted. So now it's back to normal. But it looks like the United States are trying to figure out how to collect taxes or fees on these parcels that are less than $800. Okay, this whole de minimis thing is basically an easy way for companies like Shein and Temu to send over as many products as possible while kind of escaping, the government being able to take in more fees from that de minimis. That's my guess is what he's trying to change and shape. And if they do change and shape that, it will impact these places like Temu and Shein very greatly because there's a lot of people who shop these websites. All right, for the third topic, okay, let's talk about USAID. All right, there's been a freeze, man. A lot of people are basically getting let go from the department. Thousands of people. This is absolutely freaking huge. In case you guys didn't know, the United States Agency for International Development, aka USAID, got hit with a massive freeze and thousands of employees are losing their jobs. This isn't just like a budget cut. This is a full-scale shutdown of critical aid programs that helps millions of people around the world. So why exactly did Trump do this, and what happens when the United States suddenly stops basically funding humanitarian efforts? First, let's talk about the why. Okay, why did he shut it down? Last week, the Trump administration froze all foreign aid funding for 90 days, okay, effectively shutting down U.S. aid operations worldwide. The reason was for a strategic reassessment of where U.S. tax dollars are going. Essentially, Trump is saying that too much money of United States American money is going out and helping other countries as opposed to helping themselves. Him and his administration also argue that some of the funds are being misused as well, misplaced, okay? So not only are we sending too much money to other countries, but the reasons for sending them aren't even that effective and don't really align with like U.S. policies. A lot of people have been saying this could be a little bit reckless and a little bit dangerous, okay? Because one of the powers that we have as the United States is our foreign aid, okay? The fact that we give so much money to so many people around the world is what keeps us present everywhere, right? That's what kind of gives us strength in a way, and a political strength. So kind of taking away that might also take away some of our already currently political strength that we have over the entire world. There's foreign aid workers, okay? At least 6,000 US aid employees are now jobless, okay? And more layoffs are basically going to be happening in a couple of weeks. The humanitarian programs like health, food security, disaster relief, education programs, all of it is being shut down. This includes HIV and AIDS programs like clean water initiatives and food for aid for millions of starving families. People are suggesting this could lead to an increased global poverty, more political instability, and even a rise in terrorism as struggling nations lose that critical support that the United States has been giving them. This then leads to people believing, what exactly will this mean, okay, for America and the rest of the world and the country? There's like 3 points that people have been basically echoing nonstop. Number one, there might be less United States influence, and there might be more power from China and Russia. China and Russia are already saying that they're ready to step in when the United States leaves off, and by cutting off foreign aid, Trump is essentially giving these countries more leverage to expand their influence in these struggling nations. Number two, more instability and more refugees, okay? Because when foreign aid disappears, governments collapse, then people get hungry, then there's more conflicts, and people start fleeing their country. This might create a huge wave of migration towards the United States and Europe, and it would make, even border control even more harder. This might be a reason why he's increasing the border control itself. And number three, people have been saying that this creates more of a security risk because when there's less aid, people are saying that there's more extremism, okay? Many foreign aid programs prevent terrorism by stabilizing the weak nations, but if these programs are shut down, extremist groups can recruit more easily in areas where people are desperate for resources. So that's the TLDR when it comes to the United States aid. People have always been asking me this question. I think this is a very fair question. It's just like, why do we give countries other money? Why do we have these foreign policies? Why are we out here giving all of this American money to all these places? It's power. It always comes down to power, control, and influence. And there's always pros and cons to these situations. And people are feeling like we're kind of going to lose our leverage if we take our money out of these places. In the meantime, though, some people are saying with more money, that we can spend on making America great again. We can basically make America first. But then we have the conversation where we're talking about potentially, using money to occupy Gaza. So I don't know what's going on. That's why people are conflicted, right? It's like, oh, more money for us. Great. Okay, we'll get out and let the rest of the world do what they need to do. Sure, maybe we'll lose some of our leverage when it comes to having like the world power in terms of our influence, but that money is going to be coming back into the American people. But then the American people are spending more money when it comes to tariffs. So it's confusing because there's so many moving parts. It's hard to see what the big picture is. And also, as we see all these moving parts, we can see that some of it's getting shut down. So we'll have tariffs, but then they'll get removed. We'll have another tariff, but there'll be a 30-day freeze. We'll do one thing, and then it'll stop and get blocked, and another thing will happen. So it's a lot of volatility. Next topic, let's talk about Trump's conquering. He's been on a conquering phase here, a bit of a little imperialism. He's been wanting to reclaim things, like rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Okay, he's been wanting to basically take over the world, small parts of it. Acquire Canada. Okay, acquire Gaza, acquire the Panama Canal. Let me explain some of these acquisitions here that Trump is trying to make. He's a businessman, right? So he's just trying to make acquisitions. First, let's talk about the Panama Canal first. Okay, in a recent speech, Trump had declared that the United States should take back control of the Panama Canal, calling its transfer to Panama back in 1999 as quote unquote one of the dumbest deals in history. If you guys didn't know, the Panama Canal was built by the United States. It was back in the early 1900s, but 1977, President Jimmy Carter, he signed a treaty that basically handed over control to Panama. It took 22 years, but it basically was completed in 1999, right on the cusp of the year 2000. So Trump is suggesting that this decision should be reversed. He claims that China has gained too much influence over the canal and that the US needs to protect its interest in global trading. The issue here is that Panama is not just going to like hand it over. They're not just going to be like, okay, you're right, maybe that was a bad deal. Here you go. Sure, you gave me boardwalk and you only got Baltic and Mediterranean, but I'm not going to just, reverse Uno and give you back like freaking, it's just not happening. So the only way this happens is either through negotiations, there might be like sanctions or even potentially military action. And Panama has already responded saying that the canal is theirs and there's literally nothing to discuss. We've already talked about this a little bit. We're back to Canada, okay, where Trump was basically saying this. He said, we pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. Why? There's no reason, okay? We don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy. Should make our own cars and have more lumber than we could ever use. Without this massive subsidy, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country. Harsh, but true. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state. Much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada and no tariffs. So he gave the tariffs to Canada. He's like, you know what? You guys just be our 51st state. Just come on through. Let's just be the homies. To be honest, can I be honest with you guys? That actually sounds like something that I would say like if I was younger, maybe like if I was like 10, 15. I'm like, man, Canada's up there. Aren't they attached to us? Why don't they just join us? We can all be the United States of America. They might as well, and then we'll just become the 51st state, and then we just acquire it, and yeah, we're all good and gravy. And Canada's like, bro, what the hell are you even talking about, bro? Sometimes it feels like Trump's intrusive thoughts are kind of like things that I would be thinking that are kind of like more elementary style, but he seems to want to go forward with it. But at the same time, right? At the same time, even though they might be a little bit more basic elementary, I still never can put it past Trump for making some of these things actually go through. Like, for every 10 things that he says that might be a little bit outlandish, I can never discount that maybe half of them might actually happen, which is pretty crazy and amazing when you think about it, because it's just like, I never know if it's going to happen or not. And I think the unpredictability of it is what makes Trump, like, I would say in America as well. I've communicated this many times. What makes America is the fact that we could be unpredictable and bullies, right? So making us unpredictable and bullies means that people have to kind of like figure out what they're going to do with us. They got to be a little bit more reactive than proactive. This also means that we might fumble and drop the ball in a lot of areas too as well. It's a bit reckless, but it also makes you a little bit dangerous. I don't know if that's the kind of dangerous I want for us to be as a country, but yeah, that's him trying to acquire Canada. I think there was also rumors about him talking about acquiring Greenland. Saying, yeah, we like to, where was that?
What's the price tag?
Well, maybe no price tag. Look, we're going to have to see what happens because Denmark, we need this for national security. We need Greenland very badly. You look at the Russian ships, the China ships, they're all over the place. They're surrounding. Now, they have for a long time. That's a lane. But we need that for national security. So I don't know that Denmark has any right, title, and interest, and we're going to find that. But I can tell you, you saw the clips that were released. The people of Greenland would love to become a state of the United States of America. We were greeted with tremendous love and affection and respect. The people would like to be a part of the United States. Now, Denmark maybe doesn't like it, but then we can't be too happy with Denmark, and maybe things have to happen with respect to Denmark having to do with tariffs, because they have to do this, I think, for the free world. We need that to protect the free world as well.
Oh, well, so he's like, look, we need Greenland. I think it would be good for us. The people of Greenland love us. We love them. That would be great. And he wants to expand, 51st state. But Denmark, they might not be too happy with it. So we got to hit them with some tariffs. Like, let's go. Hit them with some tariffs. Hit them with in their pocket where their money works. So that they're not getting on board, then we gotta tariff them. So I know a lot of you guys at home might not actually know where Greenland is actually located. Okay, I'm thinking about this elementary terms. Okay, here's Canada. All right, and below Canada right here is the United States of America. Okay, then you have this big old water joint called Baffin Bay, and then you have this big old island right next to Canada called Greenland, and then you have a small one next to Greenland called Iceland. Okay, this is right here before you go over, a little bit further east and you get over to Europe where Denmark is. Okay, so basically Trump is like, I want Canada and I want Greenland because they're right next to us. So let's just acquire. Let's just merge, bro. We're all in the same area anyway, and if you guys become our states, then we will be more powerful. End of story. Screw all the other laws. Screw the independency. Screw your history. Let's just merge. Now, the interesting thing is he's not even talking about it in terms of like having like agreements, coming together and having like treaties. He's literally just saying he just wants them to become states. He just wants to acquire it. Okay, which is different. There's a difference between acquiring Canada, that's the 51st state, or just working together with your allies and allowing them to stay their own states, right? That's the So he's just like, yeah, nah, let's just make it our states so that we can run it the way that we want to run it, versus how do we basically negotiate, essentially, is what it seems like he wants to try avoiding, is the negotiation process and just go straight to the ownership. And that's basically it. We already talked about Gaza. Okay, we already talked about trying to acquire that. We talked about Greenland. We talked about how Denmark might like that as well. We talked about him acquiring Canada. So he's going around, he's trying to collect more properties for the United States. Next topic, U.S. Department of Education and the dismantling of it. This one is a big one, a very, very freaking big deal. Trump and his administration is, they plan on shutting the entire thing down. What exactly does that mean for schools and students and teachers across the country? So for those of you guys who don't know, Trump has basically been planning to shut down the Department of Education for years, arguing that education decisions should be left to the states and not the federal government. Sources are saying that as of this week, the administration is actively drafting an executive order to dismantle the department entirely, which would include shutting down federal education programs that aren't required by law, transferring responsibilities to the individual states, and then eliminating federal oversight of public schools. The Trump administration basically says that this move would cut bureaucracy, okay? It would reduce unnecessary spending, and then it would give states more control over their education systems. But people are warning that this could create major problems, especially for like low income and marginalized students. Now, and if Trump does follow through with his plan, okay, if he shuts down the U.S. Department of Education, okay, at least 4 things will happen. Number 1, there will be no more federal education standards, okay? That means each state would basically create their own rules as opposed to a nationwide guideline of standardized testing, special education, qualifications, etc., which means there will be a huge difference in the education from all of the states. So you might have some states that teach one thing, you might have some states that teach another thing, okay? You might have some states that are really, really good when it comes to education. You might have some states that are just dumb as a doornail. Number 2, the funding for public schools could plummet tremendously. As of now, the federal government provides billions in funding to states, especially for low-income schools, special education, and student loans. But without the federal oversight, some of these states might struggle to maintain funding, leaving poorer districts at risk. Number 3, college financial aid could also be at risk. Currently, the federal student loan program and Pell Grants, which helps afford college, are managed by the Department of Education. But if the department is shut down, the question is who exactly takes over? Some experts fear that funding for student loans could be privatized or cut entirely. People are arguing if this is a good or bad thing. As you guys know, if you have applied for college, if you've been to college, you might have gotten those Pell Grants. You get like a couple of grand taken off your scholarships from the government. That is the U.S. Department of Education, and it's funded by the government, which is funded by U.S. tax dollars. Now, that they privatize it, okay, then who is actually going to pay? Are these scholarships still going to be in place? Is it going to be owned by a private company? And if it's being owned by a private company, is this good or bad? The idea here is coming to like government oversight and government overreach. And it sounds like Donald Trump and his administration feels like when it comes to education, the government should be taking their hands less off of the influence that it has over the United States and the controlling of education, essentially privatizing it and then using that money for other efforts. That's kind of what is being assumed here. But the question is just who comes in their place? And then for the millions of college students who can't afford, freaking college, because usually college is crazy freaking expensive, what then? Who comes in the way to kind of help buffer that? And if people can't get access to these grants, there's a lot of students who won't be able to have access to college because they won't be able to afford it. And lastly, special education and civil rights protections. Those could weaken as well. As of now, the Department of Education enforces laws that protect students with disabilities and fight against the discrimination in schools. But without it, who makes sure that the schools follow these laws? This could make it harder for families to challenge schools that don't provide proper support. So the question is why? Why has President Trump said that he wants to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education? Trump and his allies believe that education is best handled at a local level, not by Washington, D.C. They argue that the federal government has too much power over schools, that local communities should decide what the students learn, and that cutting federal education funding could lower taxes. But some of his opponents are basically saying this could increase inequality, giving wealthier states better schools while poorer states struggle to keep up. So if you're from a wealthy state, okay, then you're pretty good. Okay, just go to school and you have already a nice education system that's been designed to educate your kids and educate your high schoolers and educate the adults in a way where you will be fine and die jabu. But if you come from more of a poor place or a poor district or a poor county, and you now don't have the funding there and everything is privatized, what happens to the education in these places? And that's why people are feeling like this could be a very potential big issue going forward in the future if it gets dismantled, where education is now being put behind a paywall. They understand when it comes to the Department of Education, there is a lot of criticism on both sides here, okay? There have been a lot of complaints within people within the DOE who have been complaining about how funds are being allocated and used and feel like they're not being distributed properly when it comes to education. Okay, so this isn't a situation where there's just one side who's just pissed off at the Department of Education. There's a lot of people internally who have not been happy with how the program has been going. This article by NBC News goes into a little bit more detail saying, hey, yes, the White House is preparing an executive order to eliminate the Education Department. Two sources familiar with the plans told NBC News President Donald Trump cannot unilaterally abolish a federal agency without the approval of Congress. I believe he needs like 60 votes in order to abolish it in Congress, but there are some Republicans as well who kind of like don't stand for this as well. The planned order follows years of campaign promises from Trump to abolish the Education Department, which was established in 1979 during President Jimmy Carter's administration. A lot happened during President Jimmy Carter's administration. I'm very curious. I need to go back and kind of look into Jimmy Carter. He's not somebody that I am very well versed in. Trump said earlier that, in total, American society pours more than $1 trillion a year into public education systems, but instead of being at the top of the list, we are literally right smack, guess what, at the bottom. That we put a lot of money into our education and we are still dumb as doornails. The Republican Party adopted Trump's proposal, which was an idea also pushed by Project 2025 in its platform last year. The department says its elementary and secondary programs serve more than 50 million students in about 98,000 public schools and 32,000 private schools. It also provides grant, loan, and work study assistance to more than 12 million post-secondary students, it says. This is what we've already talked about so far. Becky Pringle, the president of the National Education Association, a major labor group, warned in a statement Tuesday that Trump's coming order would hurt students and families, especially in vulnerable populations. Quote, if it became a reality, Trump's power grab would steal resources for our most vulnerable students, explode class sizes, cut job training programs, make higher education more expensive and out of reach for middle-class families, take away special education services for students with disabilities, and gut student civil rights protections. Americans did not vote for and do not support ending the federal government's commitment to ensuring equal educational opportunities for every child. Republican support, however, for eliminating the department started soon after it was founded, with President Ronald Reagan already advocating for dismantling it. Republicans in Congress have not been able to pass the legislation to do so, however. So here's what I was saying. Republicans control the House and the Senate, but any effort to abolish the education department would face major obstacles in the Senate, where 60 votes are required to overcome a filibuster and advance to a final vote. Given the narrow majority, Republicans would need Democratic support to do that, which would make it unlikely for such a bill to pass. So that's the threat of the U.S. Department of Education to being shut down, okay? And the TLDR is that, yeah, they're trying to move it from less of a federal-owned program to a, hey, let's just let the states do what they need to do, okay? Let's turn it all private. There's pros and cons to that situation. And I'll let you guys know later if anything comes from the dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education. That's a big boy. If we see that, woof. Good Lord. And that's all I have for today. Okay, next video, I want to talk about Elon Musk more. I need to research more into what's happening with Doge, and apparently how he has his hands, his fingerprints in a lot of these federal governments. I need to know what exactly that means for us, because I know people who work with the Department of Treasury and some of these other programs, and they're getting these emails from Elon Musk. There's like rumors that Elon Musk has some strange task team of just really young people who are kind of like infiltrating. I don't even know what that means, so I'll probably save that one for a video later this week so I can do a little bit of research on it. And then there's other things as well that I wanted to talk about, but we'll save it, okay? I think I've given you guys enough information to kind of sit with. But yeah, if you guys like the video, drop a like, okay? I hope I was able to help navigate some of these topics for you guys. If you ever want me to go into a little bit more detail when it comes to some of these things, I'll go for that as well. And yeah, I'll try to keep you guys more updated on a kind of day-to-day basis when something big happens, okay? Because as you can see, if you take like a break off, if I step away for a few seconds, I'm gonna come back to like freaking like 50 executive orders. Trump is not playing, bro. And these executive orders would get reversed and then reverse uno'd, and it's just hard to keep up with. So I'll do my best to keep you guys like organized when moves are happening, and then what these moves mean and how it impacts you. And then if it doesn't actually happen, and then if we acquire some 51st state of Canada, I'll let you guys know. I love y'all. I'll catch y'all later. Y'all take it easy. Peace.